Hi guys, it's Mrs. Williams. Okay, today we're going to look at factoring completely. So before we get started, make sure you have your notes and that you have checked your tech. So when you see the directions factoring completely, that's a clue. These directions indicate, they're a hint that you will need to factor more than once. Now, I'll be honest, that's not always true, but it's a pretty good rule of thumb. If you see those directions, odds are you're going to be factoring more than once, so watch for it. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look for the greatest common factor first. That's the first thing you look for. Look for your greatest common factor. Next, look for your difference of two squares, and then your trinomial factoring. It's going to be one of those, okay? It's either going to be the difference of two squares, or it's going to be your trinomial factoring, okay? Now, before you do your difference of two squares or your trinomial factoring, don't forget to bring down the greatest common factor. And you'll hear me say, pull it out, pull it down. So let's take a look. Let's factor completely 3x squared plus 18x plus 24. So we said the first thing we're going to look for is the greatest common factor. And if you look at the numbers 3, 18, and 24, 3 divides into all those numbers. Notice we're not going to be able to pull out a variable. There's an x squared, there's an x, but there is no variable in that last term. So we're not going to be able to take out an x. But we are going to be able to divide out a 3. So when we do 3x squared, and some people like to go off to the side, and this is okay. 3x squared plus 18x plus 24, and divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. Notice I'm doing it off to the side, okay? And 3 goes into 18 6 times, and 3 goes into 24 8 times. Some like to do it off to the side. Some like to do it right here and say, okay, 3 goes into 3x squared times. 3 goes into 18x, 6x times. And 3 goes into 24, 8 times. Now what you have to remember, you pulled it out. Now pull it down. Bring that 3 down, okay? Now remember also, I am factoring. This is not a difference of two squares because I have 3 terms, so it's going to be my trinomial. I am factoring. So what I'm going to do, get my green, I'm going to set up 2 parentheses. I'm squaring x squared, so I'm going to have an x, leave it, close it, open, x, leave it, close it. But you know what else? I have to bring it down, my greatest common factor. So remember, and I'm going to do this little trick here. We are adding, I am factoring. We're going to add to this positive 6, and we're going to multiply to this positive 8. So we're going to come over here, we're going to list our factors and our sum. We also need to know what are they going to multiply to. This 8 is positive, so the signs are the same. This 6x is also positive, so both of my numbers are going to be positive. My factors are both positive. All right, we need 2 numbers that multiply to 8. Okay, that would be 1 and 8, and 2 and 4, right? And that's it. There are no other numbers. Now, if we find those sums, 1 plus 8 is 9, 2 plus 4 is 6. What were they supposed to add to? They were supposed to add to 6. So this is my magic pair. I'm going to put the plus 2 and the plus 4. And now we have factored completely. Okay, we have our greatest common factor 3 times the factor x plus 2 times the factor x plus 4. Let's do one more because this one's a little bit different. Okay, it's got a nice little trick hiding in there. So let's take a look. Notice there is no greatest common factor. The thing I told you to look for first, it's not there. But it is a trinomial, so it's not a difference of 2 squares. So I am factoring. All right, so I'm going to get my handy-dandy parentheses. What is the variable that I'm squaring? It's not x, because x times x does not give me x to the 4th. My variable that I'm squaring is x squared, because x squared times x squared will give me x to the 4th. And notice that middle term has an x squared. That's my variable, the x squared. So I have one parentheses with an x squared, then I have my next parentheses with an x squared. Okay, and I am factoring. So let's see. Let's take a look at our factors and their sum. And our 4 is positive, so our signs are going to be the same. And our middle term is a -5, which means both of our numbers are going to be negative. So two negative numbers that multiply to 4. That would be a -1 and a -4. And then we have a -2 and a -2. And we find those sums, -1 and -4, that's -5. -2 plus -2, that's -4. And what were we supposed to add to? -5. So when I look, this is my magic pair, that -1 and then -4. So I put a -1 and a -4. But guess what? I'm not done. Look at this first term here. This x squared minus 1 is a difference of two perfect squares. Uh-oh, that means I need two parentheses. And we say, okay, the first term was x squared. The square root of x squared is x. So we put an x here, we put an x here. Our second term is 1. The square root of 1 is 1. That means we have a positive 1 and a -1, right? We change the signs. But guess what? Do you see it? X squared minus 4 is also a difference of two squares. So we're going to need two more parentheses, okay? And this time, let's see. So our first term this time is also x squared. So the square root of x squared is still x. So we're going to have an x and an x. But now in the second part, we're looking at the square root of 4, which is 2, because 2 times 2 is 4. So we're going to put a +2 and a -2. And guess what? We now have completely factored. The quantity x plus 1 times the quantity x minus 1 times the quantity x plus 2 times the quantity x minus 2. We have 4 factors. Now, does the order matter? Not at all. If you had factored the first part and got x squared minus 4 times x squared minus 1, that's fine. And it doesn't matter what order your factors are in as long as you have them all there. Okay, guys, so this is it. Formulate your question. Make sure you remember, look for your GCF, then look for difference of two squares or trinomial factoring, and check and make sure at the end that you didn't miss anything. Okay? All right, guys, see you next class.